maybe from cocoa and maybe other export materials, except if there are measures to ensure that we have significant increase of forex inflows into the country that will beat down the price of the exchange rate. We're not exactly sure why this is happening, because even at the official market, where all economic agents are supposed to be accessing dollars, the naira is currently trading at over 1,600, right? So there's a lot of question mark. There's a lot of question mark right there. But then again, it's just more of economists right now are just basically watching and just basically watching to see how all of this unfolds. Yeah, that's pretty much it on the assumptions, the exchange rates, the crude oil price, and all of that.
That's quite a very detailed breakdown. Norma, let me come
Thank
to you.
So, I mean, because for me, it's I don't want to say that the government is not aware of what they're doing, right? But there seems to be a gap between, especially with regards to communication as to what is going on. So how can the government actually bridge this gap? Because until people know exactly the reasons why certain decisions are taken with regards to either revenue generation or decisions with forex and all of that. So what can be done to be able to bridge this gap? Because I don't know if they don't understand the importance of communication, or they think they're coming. I mean, there seems to be some kind of incongruence. What are your thoughts towards that?
I mean, you're very spot on that, because we have seen over time the trust deficit between public office holders, from the presidency to the judiciary to whoever it may be, with the Nigerian public, right? And oftentimes, what this has done is it has significantly reduced the trust people have in the federal government. So communication is a very big part of it. That's the reason why we have things like monetary policy committee meetings. That's the reason why the federal government is supposed to address the nation on certain changes that they will be making, right? But we don't have that. We don't have that culture in Nigeria's governance structure. And unfortunately, it's one of the reasons why we did see the reforms. When the federal government, when President Tinubu announced at the time, I think in 2023, that subsidy is gone, things like that. And there was a lot of, mayhem, immediately queues were at the filling station, people, because of that poor communication, right? Even the devaluation of the currency, the exact same thing. The federal government deciding to borrow from the World Bank, the exact same thing, right? So, and it trickles down, right? It's a thing of what is happening at the helm of affairs is happening with all the ministers as well. Because in this case, we should have heard, right, from the Ministry of Budget and Planning. We should have heard from the Minister of Economy. We should have heard from the Ministry of Finance on exactly why the federal government is towing this line and what it exactly means for the Nigerian public, right? If we're deciding to borrow, why are we borrowing this way? And the public generally should be a part of public policy, right? For instance, in Kenya, when the government is deciding on their budgets for any fiscal year, people do have access to the first draft of the budget, and they query it. They say, oh, why is this happening? Why are we increasing tax structure by X%? So even if nothing necessarily happens, even after they query it, but the fact that people can actually be a part of that public policy process, people can ask questions and they get answers to those questions, it does increase the credibility of governance, right, with the people. And right now, that communication gap is beginning to tell on Nigerian people, to the extent that if you even go into the marketplace where you're telling people, this is happening with the body, like, I beg, I don't even care what is going on. I just want to be alive, and that's because people genuinely don't care anymore, right? And that shouldn't be the case. Again, with the communication gap, apart from that, we've also seen people's trust being battered over time. So there's a thing of where you're not communicating properly with people. There's another thing of even when people decide to air their grievances, how you take that and respond to them, either bruises their ability to come back to you, or it makes them encouraged, right? And we've seen, for lack of better words, and I'll say this very boldly, we've seen an oppressive manner with how the federal government approaches feedback from people, either through protests or even questions. They don't get answers to their questions. And even when they do, exercise their right to question all of this, they're met with a lot of oppression and brutality. So yeah, I think that's my take on it.
Okay, so I'll come back to you, Dumebi, because I would love for you to break down the implication of this budget to a market woman, right? The common Nigerian. So we might understand what is going on. We might see it and we might see all the red flags. But it would be nice to give practicality in terms of this is how it's going to affect you. This is what it will mean to you. This is where it will pinch you and all of those things. But we'll do that. Let's quickly just go on a very short break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're still having a conversation on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 2025 budget of 47.9 trillion. And we're asking whether Nigerians should really care about this. Please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. You can also call us. The phone lines are 07025 007749 or 07014242420. And we still have with us our guest, Dumebi Oluwole. She's a senior economist at STAIRS. She's joined us virtually. Thank you again for staying with us, Dumebi. Now, tell me, before we went on that very short break, I asked a simple question. I'm a market woman, right? I'm a laborer. I'm a bus driver, right? How would this affect me? How would this budget, what would it look like? The borrowing, like I was saying yesterday that I saw a comical representation of the president drawing bags of money that were written loan. I think it was Business Day that posted it. It says he's painting something, he's coming, just wait for the masterpiece. I don't understand that. I'm not an economist, right? So you help me break it down. Yeah. How does this affect the everyday person?
Yeah, okay. So let's start with the entire process. So as a businesswoman, every year, if you want, or as a business owner, every year you plan for the next year. At the end of every year, you plan for the next year. This is exactly what is going on. It's just on a bigger level, right? Where the government is saying, this is how we want to go about Nigeria for 2025. This is how much we want to make, and this is how much we want to spend. And this is what we want to spend on, right? So the two key things to look out for is how the government wants to make money and how the government wants to spend money. How the government wants to make money is by selling more crude oil. And we do know that they've been having issues with that. And if they are able to actually meet this budget estimate that they have, what this means that Nigeria will make more money. It means that Nigeria will make more forex. It means that the exchange rate will somewhat stabilize, not appreciate, but stabilize. And what this also means is that the exchange rate stabilizes, your cost of doing business reduces. Because if you're importing raw materials, if you're buying maybe bags of rice to retail, what this means is that the cost of those commodities will reduce and your cost of operation will reduce. And it means that going into 2025, your cost of living, might begin to make more sense, right? And this scenario is if we're able to meet up with our revenue projections based on what the government has said they want to do. Now, if we look at how the government wants to spend their money, they said they are going to spend more on salaries this 2025. And what this means that they're spending more on salaries, it means that the things that we need to improve our productivity, like good roads, the rail transportation, if you're a transporter or you're into logistics or distribution, maybe you bring in large trucks of tomatoes into Lagos to retail or to wholesale, What this means is that the issues you have been experiencing with road infrastructure, it will take some time for these issues to correct themselves, because the government right now is still prioritizing, recurrent expenses, that is salary payments, administrative expenses, ministerial expenses, all of that, over these capital expenditures, right? So meaning that it will take some time for you to see changes in the hospital infrastructure, the education infrastructure, and all of that. So I would say that is the first scenario. But in a situation where the government is not able to meet up with this revenue so that it can spend the way it wants to spend, and basically support the currency and things like that, what this now means for you is that the way 2024 was is how 2025 is going to be. And what
Are
that
you sure it's going
means
to
for
be
you,
like that, or is it even going to be worse? Yeah.
well, to be honest, because of some of the changes that we are seeing, slow but notable changes, right? We do think that 2025 might not be as painful, right? I'm not saying you won't feel pain. You will, but that it would be like how 2024 started, where there was sharp increases in petrol prices. The price of rice significantly increased because of, the exchange rate and things, because going into 2025, we do not expect another devaluation of the currency. So what that means is that the importation cost will not be as high anymore, right? So that's why I said stability, not appreciation. So that pain will still be there, right? So yes, in terms of if the government is not able to meet up with how it expects to make money, it means that all of the issues you faced in 2024 will still be there. It might not be as aggravated or as escalated, but it will still be there. Then you also consider if the government is not able to generate as much money as it's supposed to generate by itself, what this means is that the government will have to borrow. Because even as a business owner, sometimes you leverage debt. You go to the bank, oh, please, I need some capital. And so the government will now do that, both on two levels. Number one, they would meet foreign investors. Oh, please, we need to borrow some money so that we can meet our revenue for 2025. Those foreign investors will say, okay, because you are Nigeria, and we've seen how you have gone about your reforms, this is what we are going to do. We'll give you this money, but we'll give you at a premium. And that's where interest rates come in, right? To say, okay, we're going to charge you for this money that we're going to give to you. And what that now means is that the government's debt, nominally, that's the actual principal, will increase, right? Both in dollar terms and in naira terms. And the cost of now repaying that debt, that is the interest payment in itself, will also increase, right? Both in naira terms and in dollar terms. And when you break it down to now look at what will happen in the economy, what it means is that, again, those capital expenditures that the government is supposed to spend, those infrastructure, those good roads, it will take a longer time for them to happen, because now the government will have to prioritize paying its creditors over, some of those expenses. So I would say in simple terms, as a market woman, just prepare your mind to experience what you experienced in 2024, in 2025, at least for the first half of the year, until people like myself, economists, come out to say, oh, the government has done this, so it's looking better. Maybe 2025 going into the end of 2025, things will significantly begin to change. So I would say on a simple scale, that's what it means for at least a market woman or a business owner.
Norma, before I bring you in, I just want to quickly touch on what Dumebi had said. Dumebi, why are you insisting on stabilizing this dollar? Why can't it not go down? Because you kept on saying stable. Who told you want it stable?
Yes.
Want it to go down?
Yeah, I know we want it to go down, but it takes time for things like this to correct themselves.
Hi.
And the reason is because of, sorry, I understand the pain. Even me too, I'm feeling it. You want to travel too. The dollar will tell you when you want to pay for flight tickets, so I completely understand it. But when we look at the fundamentals backing the exchange rate market, right, nothing right now points to an appreciation, because we're not seeing a consistent increase in long-term foreign exchange into the country. So foreign exchange right now for Nigeria, I can say it's pretty much broken down into four. right? So we have the foreign exchange that comes in from like crude oil exportation. We have the foreign exchange that comes in from non-crude oil foreign exports, things like cocoa, exporting sesame seeds, things like that, right? And then you have the foreign exchange that is coming in from investors, which is still broken down in two. That is the one that comes in very quickly. They don't want to just invest in a stock, a bank stock, and after 2 months or 3 months, they've taken their money back out. Then you have the ones that are willing to stay long term. Then you have businesses like Guinness, so Diageo, that have been here for like 30 years. Things like that. Those are the kind of stable inflows that I'm talking about. That's foreign direct investment. Then the last part of it is remittance inflows, where people that are abroad are sending money into Nigeria, sending foreign currency into Nigeria. When you analyze what has been going on with all four of this, you realize that number one, for crude oil, we're not making as much because we're not producing as much. So the chances of the exchange rate stabilizing or even appreciating on that fact alone, the chances of the exchange rate appreciating on that fact alone is pretty slim, at least going into the first quarter of 2025 rather. Then you look at the other sources of exports, cocoa, sesame seeds, we're not producing enough as well. So meaning that we're not making enough foreign exchange. So in that regard as well, the chances of the exchange rate appreciating is also slim. Then you look at the investors part I explained. We're seeing more of the short-term money coming in, going into the stock exchange, going into treasury bills. That is not long enough. That is not sustainable enough for the government to use to kind of stabilize the exchange rate market. That is in terms of servicing foreign exchange needs from businesses, bulk foreign exchange needs from businesses. So that's bulk of demand. There is still a supply shortfall in there to meet it consistently over time. Because it's one thing to meet it today. What if you're not able? It's one thing to meet it today. It's one thing to meet it 1 month. For 1 month, it's one thing to meet it for 6 months consistently, and it's one thing to meet it for a whole year consistently. And we're not seeing that consistency, and that's why we do not think that appreciation will happen anytime soon. Then in terms of the FDI, that is the more long-term foreign exchange inflows, since I would say over the last couple of years, almost a decade now, when we had the previous CBN governor coming in, where there were a lot of capital controls, there was a lot of issues with repatriating funds in and out of Nigeria. Those long-term investors started being very cautious of bringing money into Nigeria. And to woo them back into the country, it will take some time. So until we see significant, improvements in that regard, that kind of stable effects that we need to sustain FX demand for at least for like a year, 2 years, thereabout, until we see reasonable improvements there, that chance of the exchange rate appreciating is also very slim. Then you consider remittance inflows. People abroad are also trying to live their lives. Inflation is high there as well. The cost of living is high there as well. So even if someone was bringing in about maybe sending every month or every year about $10,000 or $50,000 or even $100,000, because of inflation and the cost of living where they are, the chances of that being as high is also reduced. So when you net all of these effects on Nigeria's FX market, you realize the chances of the Naira significantly appreciating going into 2025 is very slim. And that's why we are opting for exchange rate stability, right? Because when you take up reforms, if your exchange rate can be stable, at least for up to 6 months, what it does is that it encourages and it boosts investor confidence. Say, okay, this market, we're not seeing the currency significantly appreciate, but at least we're not seeing sharp swings in the exchange rate, where today the Naira is 1.6 and tomorrow it is 1.7 and next tomorrow is almost touching 1.8. Right? Because businesses at that point, they can plan. They can say, okay, if we plan with the exchange rate of 1,700, right, we do think that it would remain around this level. And their own, board of directors, their own limited partners are encouraged to give them more forex. And then we begin to see that level of stability, that level of appreciation begin to happen. But not until we see changes in those 4 sources of forex that I've mentioned. We don't see any sign of significant appreciation, at least to what the government is projecting and hinging their budget on, which is that 1.4. We don't see that happening anytime soon.
It's not my fun.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just dumbfounded because, I mean, if Dumebi is able to break this thing down to this point where you can see a little bit of, you can have a little bit of clarity and you can see the potentials for the near future, then why isn't the government leveraging such opportunities, right? Or being able to communicate this down to ground zero, because this is something that can actually prepare people for the near future. We're talking about 2025 that is already around the corner. So, I mean, my question is somewhat would be to maybe how can government begin to like actually pay attention to communication? Because for me, from everything you've said, it's that is a core aspect that needs to be addressed.
Wait,
And
Norma.
whether the government,
Not be even wait,
sorry?
Norma, calm down. Not be even the communication they worry me now. If Dumebi is able to break it down, who are the people communicating to the government? The so-called economists, the advisors that are advising them. And is it that they cannot see these things? They should not communicate. No, I'm telling you, Norma, they should not communicate to us. They should leave us. They should communicate to the government. Ha.
Yeah, because it seems like the government is completely oblivious to the impact of this on the Nigerian people. So how can government begin to leverage this as an opportunity? You talked about exchange rate stability. These are core aspects of being able to manage the situation, as it were. So is it a problem of the wrong people advising the government, or the government is hard of hearing and deciding to do what they want to do, believing that it is the best possible plan for the future of Nigeria? Or is it that, I mean, what are the, because then again, you want to talk about the options. We already see that crude oil production, from even the global perspective of things, that is not going to be a sustainable, viable option for us moving forward. And yet, this is where we have hinged our everything on. So how can a government begin to shift away and begin to explore other avenues towards this stability that is very needed now in the economy?
I mean, that was a very packed question. So I'll try to take everything as quickly as I can. So the first one on the government, on the advisors to the government. I do think that the government has competent people advising them. Now, whether or not they take the advice, I don't think those people have control over that, right? It's just a thing of, for instance, I can have a presentation with the MD of a company or a CEO of a company telling him this is where I think things are going to land. And that's my job as an economist, as an advisor to that individual. Now, what they do with that information, I have no control over that. And I think that's really the case here with the economic advisors and how the government is approaching governance in Nigeria. I don't really think they can do so much as beyond what they are doing, which is advising the government. And they can't handhold them to sign the bills or to talk to the people, right? But they are not advising them. I don't think that is the case. So that's for that aspect. Then in terms of the communication bit, I know we already spoke on that. And to be very honest, I don't think it's a difficult thing. It's pretty straightforward. And I'm going to make another bold statement here. And I do think that that's where honesty in office comes into play, right? Because governance goes beyond the policies that you decide to take up, and it goes beyond you sitting on the chair, right? When you ingrain it in mind that you're here to serve, you're not here to just lead people. You're not here to command and tell people what to do, what not to do, or feel like, oh, I'm the president. This is what. When you're sitting in that seat and understand that what you are doing, you're serving the people, you are in the office of public service, then the true definition of governance and how we approach it in Nigeria, I think it will completely change. And to be fair, I don't think it's just a Nigerian problem. I think it is a pandemic across Africa, because we've seen that trend across African governments, right? Where public service holders see it as though they are in those offices to just lead people and do as they please, right? They do not really see it as an office to serve people. And I think that's where that problem with communication comes in, right? When you feel like you do not owe people an explanation for what you are doing or how you are going about things, I think that's where that communication gap is coming
Okay.
from. And I think it's pretty simple to solve. Just come out and talk.
Okay.
Nobody will beat you. Nobody will kill you. Just come out and
And
talk.
talk.
It's just
Okay.
that simple. Yes.
Dumebi, I would like to ask a
Yeah.
question because, we've been complaining about recurrent expenditure, that it is really off the roof. And this year, the president, he did not only set aside a budget for recurring expenditures that is higher than capital expenditures, there is also an increased number of staff in his cabinet, because he added new ministries, meaning that from those new ministries there will be new people and all of that. Is it a thing of is it that the government seems to be blind, that they are not seeing that this thing is already an over bloated system? Because I don't understand how a small business like myself will decide to be hiring people that I'm not sure where the money is coming to pay that person. So why are we still having a bloated recurring expenditure? Why are we not thinking? Because you said it whilst you were talking about capital expenditure and whilst you're talking about infrastructure, that the only way we can become a lot more productive is if we focused on certain infrastructural deficits that we have. But you are, as a government, you are still increasing. You are going to go and take a loan, and you are taking that loan to go and pay salaries. How does it make sense? So why are we still having the issues of a bloated system where we are paying so much in salaries, and yet we're not paying attention to the things that needs to be paid attention to?
I mean, I think this is one of those questions where I don't think any economist in Nigeria has the answer to, because we're not in the minds of the government. I think that this is something that people have clamored for a very long time, significantly reducing the cost of governance, from ghost workers to the salaries of the ministers, to the salary of even the president, to the allowances that they are given, to the cost of their vehicles. Those things are outrageous. And I say that very boldly, especially when you look at what happened towards the end of 2023, where we had the supplementary budget, and there was a budget for a yacht. There was renovation for the
office of the vice president. There was a purchase of private jets.
I mean, 20 billion. There was the office of the first lady.
First lady that bought cars, yes.
Yes, that. And when I did a mini analysis at the time, I realized that the cost for the SUVs for the office of the first lady at the time was higher than the cost for the road construction. I think the Badagry Expressway, and what that just puts in perspective is the government's priority, right? And when you look at it in terms of developmental economics, what this means is that we do not have a government that is ready to feel the pain of the people, right? So it's more of, we're taking up reforms, everyone else feel the pain, we're good, right? And again, I think that's where that thing of the mentality of public service comes into question, right? Because when you do not see yourself as the person that's here to serve these people, to make their lives better, right? You think you're here to live a life of, flamboyancy and stuff. Your priorities will show in how you budget things, in how you spend, in how you plan to raise money. Even when you take up socioeconomic reforms, right, how you embark on those reforms and how you treat people in terms of like the most vulnerable people in Nigeria. Because for instance, right, up until today, we haven't yet seen the list of people in our updated social cash register, in our social register, right? That is the people that receive the conditional transfers that the government gives every month. We really don't know who these people are. And even in a situation where you've taken up reforms, right, and these people are the ones that feel the heat the most, and we're still publishing that we give them 5,000 naira every month for conditional cash transfers, it does tell us where the priority of the government is, because 5,000 naira, what can it get you in a day? Not to talk of a month for a household of 4, which is the median
You
for
said
every
in a
Nigerian
day
person.
or in a second. What can 5,000 naira get you in a second?
Yeah,
It's not
yes.
even a day.
I mean,
It can't
yeah,
feed
so
you for 3 days, and you are giving it to a family. I mean, this is what we're saying. It's just a very
yes.
shroudy. It's just a very shroudy system. So I don't see this 2025 budget as a game changer. If for anything, it's just there because there's really nothing is going to
Yeah.
change. Absolutely. Your final thoughts in 1 minute.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. And that's what I was mentioning, especially if you even if you discount for the exchange rates, that is when you convert the naira terms of the dollar in the naira terms of the budget into dollars, you'd see that the budget is even lower than what we spent in 2024. Right. So when you convert it, it's about 34 billion dollars. Compared to what we budgeted using an exchange rate of about 800 naira to a dollar in 2023, it was about 36 billion, right? So you see that's when you discount for the naira, it's actually lower, right? When you discount for the dollar, rather, discount for the exchange, it's actually lower, right? So then again, it brings to question, so how, if we're generating less, right, and we're supposed to use this as an avenue to make more, why are we not spending on what will give us the more
money?
Why are we spending on what will give us the less? Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
It just be like the thing they do me, I still cannot understand it, because even layman know. You go put money where go bring money come. You will not be putting money where it's like a basket that is just going away. So I still don't understand. But thank you, Dumebi. We've really run out of time. But Norma, I believe we have a message. You want to quickly take that?
Okay. Yes, we do have a message. And it says government advisors in developing countries are toothless bulldogs that specialize in barking without enforcement. The IMF and World Bank conditionalities are not favorable to countries that are not production minded. And this is from an anonymous writer.
Thank you so much. Dumebi, it was really, really lovely having you on the show. We're hoping that we're going to have you back. I mean, you make economics interesting for some people like us that don't like economics. But thank you so much for your time this evening. Would love to have you back. I mean, if you oblige us. Thank you, Norma. All right, so before we go, ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us across all social media handles, share, like, invite families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. You see, conversations around finance and economics, even if you don't like it, you have to force yourself to go and understand those conversations, because that is the only way we can have important, banter with our government. So if you miss our quote for today, here it is again. The approved 2025 budget aggregates are inherently sensitive to current macroeconomic conditions, as they directly impact revenue generation, expenditure, and overall fiscal performance. This was what was said by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Lagos Chapter Director General Chinere Almona. We'll see you guys on Monday as we bring another great conversation to your screen.
Hey guys, it's Oluchi for Ray's Breakfast. Thanks for always tuning in. Our research has shown that you're probably not subscribed to our channel. What are you waiting for? Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you never miss out on our latest content and stay in the loop with all things Ways. If the channel grows, it means more great content for you guys. So hit that subscribe button now.